Before I begin, this isn't directed at anyone in the Vita community, and this isn't a criticism on anyone's feelings towards the Vita scene. This video is just 100% meant to educate the user side of the scene, and provide a bit of context to why some devs do the things that they do, and why developer interests don't always align with users of the scene. Now that that's out of the way, let's get into the meat and potatoes of the discussion. The average gamer doesn't really have an understanding of the capabilities and limitations of the consoles they play on. This is not a dig on the average consumer, as most people couldn't tell you how their car works, how their toilet flushes, or even how something as simple as a marker is manufactured. However, this misunderstanding of the technology in their hands can create unrealistic expectations, not only for the games that are developed by the normal developers, but also those that are developed by homebrew developers. I was still a teen, but I remember it just like it was yesterday. All the people asking if the N64 could be emulated on the Nintendo DS. And even now, I still periodically see on the PS Vita subreddit people asking about PS2 emulation. Now, I don't blame users or consumers for this misunderstanding, as companies do advertise these systems as major technological leaps, and love to toss around numbers that can be a bit misleading to say the least. Now, this leads me to the homebrew side of the Vita scene. If you're unaware, the Raihan Homebrew Contest has been going on for the last couple of months, and we've already seen quite a few submissions. We have a bunch of ports, a couple of original games, and even a few tools and utilities. With all these releases, I've seen a couple of complaints about the quality of some of the ports, as I think people were expecting more heavy hitters, like in past homebrew competitions, such as Crashlands, Redriver, Late Shift, and so on. First, I say it's still early in the competition, and I'm sure some devs are still cooking up projects, and others may be holding on to something special for the end. Second, these competitions are more or less a victory lap for the developers of the community, a way that the community can celebrate those that hold up the scene while contributing a bit to someone's beer or pizza money, while at the same time getting a rush of new projects. Big projects take a ton of work and can cause a lot of stress, especially if you're giving yourself a strict timeline to get it done. I know those that have contributed money may get a bit disappointed that the game they wanted isn't there, but I promise you that any developer that is capable of porting Android games, AAA 3D games of yesteryear, or emulators can and usually does, making a lot more money from their labor than they will be getting from this homebrew competition. Any projects that you assume are being created out of greed in an attempt to cheaply win the prize is anything but the sort. These projects are a labor of love, and they aren't really done with money in mind. The money from the competition is really just a nice bonus, and adds a bit more excitement to something that you normally would do anyways. Now, some developers, such as myself, choose to go against what most of the community is asking for. I only technically have 4 ports under my belt: Superhero Chronicles, Defenguin, Tux Football, and Slime Volleyball. The first was ported from my own Flash game, as a learning experience, to get a grasp on Lua and Lua Player Plus, while the latter 3 were ported for other reasons. Defenguin was done so I could familiarize myself with SDL ports. Slime Volleyball was just a simple, low-hanging fruit next step for me. And Tux Football was done because I saw that there were no sports homebrew games. And I haven't ported anything since, instead opting to work on my own original games. I know most people would likely want Android ports more than hand cannon, but I've honestly never even looked into it, and don't even know what the process entails. I probably could have spent the last few years of my life learning how to do Android ports instead of making hand cannon and porting over some of those games that I randomly receive requests for every now and then. But that wouldn't make me happy. I don't really have an interest in ports, as most of my enjoyment from programming actually comes from developing the game itself and creating a new experience. Now, I'm sure other developers have their own reasons for why they port and develop the things that they do. Some look for a challenge, either for their own technical skills or for pushing the hardware. Some are doing it to improve the tools and libraries they've made. You can see this how almost every port using Vita GL has grown and improved the library. Even some of the ports that people don't find significant as far as entertainment or being groundbreaking. Now for the low-hanging fruit. The low-hanging fruit is now only low-hanging fruit because of the years of work that have gone into improving the tools and simplifying the process while gaining knowledge, which I know strikes some people as low effort or lazy on the developer side. But why shouldn't the masters enjoy the fruits of their labor and take advantage of the processes and tools that they've built up over the last few years? Also, a lot of the low-hanging fruit allows developers to quickly test the libraries in multiple new ways. allowing them to find bugs and make improvements, which can then translate over to existing homebrew. I'm unsure if the average user is aware, but Vita SDK is constantly being improved, and so are the libraries that are attached to it. These fixes and additions are largely fueled by everyone's development. So I hope some of this helps provide context to the community. Again, like I said, this is not an attack on anyone, but more of just an explanation of a developer's process and mindset. I hope I did a good job explaining. Until the end of the competition, I'm going to begin covering the releases, which will hopefully get some more eyes on the scene overall. So stay tuned for the next couple of weeks for those videos. Anyways, that's it for today. Thanks for watching, and thanks for your time.